The ban announcement got leaked. Yeah, a week early. They say on Reddit, a user says that they scrubbed the wotc site for the data and found it, and they know exactly what will get banned in standard. And you know what? A lot of people are believing it, and a lot of people are happy and excited about it, and we're going to talk about it, but there's something you should know. It also looks too good to be true. Like, if it's true, it's an unprecedented ban announcement. More cards than have ever been banned out of standard at one time that I can ever recall, unless you count like the Affinity days when they banned all of the artifact lands at once, basically banning a whole cycle. Even then, I think that was 7 cards. This, I'm looking at, am I looking at 7 or 8? 8 cards. 8 cards. And it's the entire backbone of standard, which is, holy crap, unbelievable. And yet still somehow leaves standard's most expensive card intact. All right, all of this is unconfirmed. We won't know until next Monday. All of this might not be true. You need to know that going in, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about each of the cards announced and whether or not it makes sense to me. I was really honestly working on a ban announcement video and organizing my thoughts because I was going to go about, and I'm being honest here, I was going 8 to 10 cards deep, talking about each card and why not only did it need to be banned, but it also needed to be banned if card so-and-so was banned. And it looks like Wizards was on the same warpath, if this is correct, because this announcement does go deep. It goes really deep. Let's go right to the beginning. We've got Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Fable. The interesting thing about Fable is that it had to get banned in this announcement for no other reason. I mean, obvious power level. Obviously, everybody's playing it. Obviously, the card is just way too much value in one card for the standard format. It had to get banned in this announcement for confidence. People were never, ever going to let Wizards off the hook if we had another year of Fable of the Mirror Breaker. It just wasn't happening. So according to the leak and the post on Reddit, Fable is getting banned. No surprise, it had to go. But one thing about the ripple effects of Fable, and we'll talk about it as we go, is that removal kind of gets good again because it took 2 removal spells to handle Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which left the door wide open for other cards that would normally just die to removal to actually be not just playable, but good. So Fable leaving has huge ripple effects in the format. Number 2, Reckoner Bankbuster, according to the leak, is getting banned. This one hurts a little. I mean, I know many people are happy to see it go. I'm kind of happy to see it go. Here's what I don't like. I don't like losing card advantage for colors that can't normally have it. I think they figured this out for Commander, and it's a good thing for Commander. Should it be a good thing for Standard? I think it would, if done well, be a good thing for Standard. Having card draw available to all the colors does create kind of this thing where you can play decks that you wouldn't normally play. Gruul Control and Big Red are 2 decks that I love to bust out every now and then in a format, and without a card like Reckoner Bankbuster, those decks don't make much sense. But this one was too good. I mean, you get the 3 cards, you get the pilot, you get to crew up a 4/4. You also just have a beatdown plan if you're not drawing cards with it. And it was actually hard to remove. Aside from a Braid, there weren't a lot of easy or like very reliable ways to remove it that got popular in the format. Lauren of the Third Path, some people used a lot. But I mean, overall, Bankbuster was too cheap and too much, and it just kind of added, when it all came down to it, it didn't just help those kind of off meta, kind of slow Gruul and green decks and mono red decks. It helped the same mid-range decks that everything else helped, right? It went into Rakdos and made Rakdos better. So yeah, Bankbuster was also on the chopping block for me. Makes total sense for me. Here's one you guys are gonna love. Invoke Despair, according to the leak, is going to be banned. Yeah, from the day I saw this card, I was like, that's the best one. I mean, out of the 5 invokes, it was by far the best one. And then the first time you cast it, you're like, oh my god, it's like a win con that draws cards. What more could you ask for? And it invalidated so much of the format. What I have to say about Invoke is it had to go if Fable and a few other cards specifically went, because then like when you look at Fable, it was one of the best ways to fight Invoke, right? You got a creature and you got an enchantment. Invoke killed 2 out of the 3, but at least you didn't get, the opponent didn't draw 3 cards or wipe out 3 of your cards. It was one way to keep up. A few other cards are also ways to keep up. And if like Invoke Despair had to be banned because of the other cards on this list, because they were all good ways to keep up with Invoke Despair. Reckoner Bankbuster, notably also one of the only good cards in the format that Invoke didn't kill. So if Bankbuster gets banned, of course Invoke has to be banned, because now Invoke just kills everything useful. So Invoke Despair supposedly getting the axe, followed by another card that absolutely would have been the most played card in the format if Invoke Despair were still legal. Wedding Announcement. This is another card that keeps up with Invoke Despair at a very good rate, and therefore is extremely, extremely valuable. Had Invoke Despair, if like just Fable and Bankbuster had gone, Wedding Announcement would be your format. Wedding Announcement and another card that we're getting to. And it had to go because it's part of this whole sick ecosystem in Standard that all started to bleed into each other. You have to run Fable and or Wedding Announcement because of Invoke Despair. You have to run Invoke Despair because of, you know, enchantments like Fable and Wedding Announcement that just sit on the battlefield, and because it's just so insanely powerful. The cards basically had to keep clashing against each other. If any one of them were allowed to stand after one was banned, it would become just a completely lopsided Standard. And that goes for the next card too. Wandering Emperor? The Wandering Emperor. She gets banned? My girl? What? My avatar. The Wandering Emperor is also getting banned. So mono white taking a hit here after red and black got the first 3 that we talked about. But the Wandering Emperor and Wedding Announcement leaving, it leaves white with a whole different identity, because that was it, right? You turn 3 wedding, you do whatever on turn 2. You could do something as weak on the board as an Ambitious Farmhand or Spirited Companion. And then if turn 3 is Wedding Announcement and turn 4 is Wandering Emperor, you're good. Like, you've taken over the board in a lot of situations. So the Wandering Emperor getting the axe, another card that like was going to be absolutely necessary if Invoke had stayed legal, would probably take over the format if Invoke weren't legal. Invoke actually keeping cards like the Wandering Emperor in check, and now it's got to go. Wandering Emperor also out of here. I wasn't sure this one would go. It's a 4-mana Planeswalker, and it does create interesting, I would say, play patterns. As a control mage, it's one of the only cards I could rely on to help me stabilize against mono red. Very few other cards keep up. It kept Tenacious Underdog in check, which that's going to be interesting. Turn your eyes to the underdog once again. So I don't know about this one. I kind of get it and I kind of don't. I'm a little apprehensive at what will happen now with like the Blitz cards, and maybe that's fine. Maybe that's what Wizards wants. But as a control mage, this is one of the only cards on this list that I would call a key piece of my arsenal. I was happy to move on from Bankbuster and play good old-fashioned card draw spells. But without the Wandering Emperor, I'm not sure how I'm going to hold off the likes of a Razorlash Transmogrant, Tenacious Underdog, and I'm sure that there are some other comes back from the dead stuff I'm forgetting. Rafine. Next on the list is Rafine. I said this card was busted the day I saw it. You can go look up the podcast. But my God, I didn't think it would get banned. I'm really surprised it's banned here. And a big part of the reason is because with Wedding Announcement gone, with Invoke Despair and Fable gone, it feels like Rafine won't be that hard to kill because people don't have to spam removal on everything early. Cut Down still hits it. Go for the Throat still hits it. And the Rafine decks get interesting. You can play like Flashy Token, Make Disappear Rafine. You can actually do a few different things instead of, but maybe they're like, you know what? People will probably just default to Legends. And that's probably why it got the X, because Legends are there's so many legends and there's so many ways to build the Legends Matter decks, but they all kind of become Esper because of Rafine, because this is the best way to do it. You go turn 1 Skrelv, turn 2 Thalia, turn 3 Rafine, and you probably win. So Rafine gets the axe. I think that they're thinking they'll open up space in the Legends piles. And on that note, why don't we also just kill the Legends piles while we're at it? Plaza of Heroes. This one, wow, I did not see this coming. I am kind of still like, holy crap, they took a shot at the mana base of the Legends decks. Yeah, I get it kind of, because it was a card that put the Legends decks on rails. You want to run all legendaries. You can run all kinds of colors. Honestly, I thought that was one of the cooler things about it. The ability of Plaza to provide protection, though, I think that was where it crossed the line, because people would just get down a decent board where they were slightly ahead, and then they would just pass and hold up Plaza of Heroes until the opponent died. That play pattern isn't very entertaining. It's not very fun to take part in. So I think they saw that as a problem. I think they also saw this as a potential format warping thing. If in the absence of all the cards that were banned, only one of them so far has been a legendary creature, Rafine. If the Legends decks rose to be the new normal, the new best thing, this card would probably be something that put them over the top, because they got utility out of their mana base and protection out of their mana base, and no other deck has that. They just don't have access to that. So I think I get it, but I'm surprised by it. And I still think that there's something else they should have done for the Legends Matters kind of deck. But we'll get to that. Plaza of Heroes supposedly getting banned. Atroxa Grand Unifier. This card came out very recently, like this year. This card is from this year. Atroxa Grand Unifier getting banned supposedly in this announcement. I get it. It's a F ton of value. It is the reanimator target of all reanimator targets. It now dates back to several formats. I'm still shocked primarily because if we want to reanimate, we still have busted reanimation spells. We still have Thalia, and we still have Breach the Multiverse. And both of those cards are also 7 mana. Both of those cards produce way too much value as one card. Atroxa, in theory, generates more, but both of those cards produce more on the battlefield in the moment. Atroxa can whiff. Atroxa also can't get you cards that aren't in your deck. So if you don't have a board wipe to handle a situation, Atroxa can't hit it. Thalia hits from the other deck. And so does Breach, which this one, I get it and I don't get it. They don't want the format to be boring. They don't want it to be stale. There is a genuine fear that every deck will now be an Atroxa deck. Atroxa will completely take over. And now instead, those decks that would be Atroxa decks are Thalia decks. Thalia has a bit more RNG. It can also whiff. But I mean, for me, they're kind of similar. So I don't know. This one I wouldn't have guessed. I would have said Atroxa is probably safe. It just came out this year. And it's a very, I mean, financially, it's a pretty expensive card for the format. It's definitely a build around. It isn't the only option for those decks, though. Those decks can pivot. Did those decks get a lot weaker? Is it just the play pattern? Because I bet there's data showing that when Atroxa resolves, people scoop before even seeing what the opponent picks out, because they sit there choosing their new hand for like 10 minutes. That's frustrating, but I don't know, man. I am surprised by Atroxa. This is, of all of these, this is the one I have the hardest time with the logic, because I just think that it's not even clearly the best. There are definitely arguments for Thalia and Breach the Multiverse as well, and you're still just going to see a ton of those cards. The strategy is going to remain almost exactly the same. So, like, what did we change? And I guess we changed a play pattern of this one card soloing games if they can't deal with its 7/7 life linking self. Who does that help? Mono red. That's why I hate it. All right. That's the announcement. Those are the 8. Let's recap. Fable, Bankbuster, Invoke, Wedding Announcement, Wandering Emperor, Rafine Scheming Seer, Plaza of Heroes, Atroxa Grand Unifier. One more time, if this leak is real. It's Reddit, guys. We don't know for sure. Unprecedented. Just absolutely tore the spine out of Standard, and that is, I think, what they needed to do to generate any kind of confidence and any kind of interest in Standard. Is Standard more interesting from this? Yeah, I think so. I have no idea. I can't remember the last time I played a deck in Standard that wasn't mono red or mono white and didn't run these cards. Like every non-mono deck that I've played ran these cards. So yeah, this is going to be a lot to process. So let's talk about two cards that did not get the axe. Number one, Sheoldred the Apocalypse. Sheoldred stays Standard's most expensive card, and a card many people thought for sure would get banned, according to this maybe fake leak. I get it. I wish I had gotten my video out. I was going to finish it today. I already had the notes on it. Because one thing I said was don't ban Sheoldred if you do this ban. Why? Because the reason that Sheoldred lives, from the day Sheoldred was spoiled, people are like, it dies to Doomblade. It's easy to kill. That's why it's not that big of a deal. It's not that good of a card. Unfortunately, from the day Sheoldred arrived in Standard, Sheoldred was supported by this stuff. And why does this matter? Because all these things demand removal. They just they snowball the game if the cards are not removed. And Meathook Massacre, one of the cleanest ways to clean up things like Fable and Wedding Announcement, got removed from the format. So all of these value generating cards demanded all the removal that the opponent could possibly put in a deck and still have a functioning deck. So once they used up all that removal, then Sheoldred comes down, they're out of it, and now they're trying to top deck into it. How do you draw removal? By trying to draw more cards with your value rich format. And what happens? You get on a quick clock because Sheoldred drains you every time you draw. So with these cards gone, specifically Fable. Fable was the one where it's like you need 2 removal spells to solve this. You use your 2 removal spells and then Sheoldred, and then you die. Specifically with that gone, it is much more likely that the cards that deal with Sheoldred, like Go for the Throat in the format, get to do their job. So I don't think you have to ban Sheoldred. I actually agree with this completely. I was going to make a similar argument. Sheoldred should stay. It is also, might be biased here, it's one of the only real checks on mono red in best of 1. And look, I know they don't make bans for best of 1. Unless it's like a gameplay issue like Nexus of Fate. But they don't ban with best of 1 in mind. They ban for best of 3. You can tell. The most played decks in best of 1, none of their cards got banned in this announcement. So, like, best of 1 does still kind of need a Sheoldred so that mono red doesn't just auto win. It should be harder for mono red. They should have to actually deal with a 4-drop creature sometimes. So I am totally fine with it for that reason as well. Now we're going to talk about the card I was going to argue the hardest to ban. I feel like Fable had to go. I feel like Wedding Announcement, probably had to go. Invoke Despair, Bankbuster, all of those. I wouldn't have banned Plaza of Heroes or Rafine. I would have just banned Thalia. And this is admittedly, I admit, this is a best of 1 ban. And they don't usually ban with best of 1 in mind. But I'm the one in best of 1. I'm allowed to care about my format. Thalia puts so many decks on this like perfect rail system of you go turn 1 Skrelv, you go turn 2 Thalia, and the opponent never gets to really play the game. They're just straight up locked out. They get beaten to death now by Adeline or whatever comes after it. And it kind of creates this auto build around philosophy of just don't run spells. The best aggro decks, in my opinion, the coolest aggro decks are the right mix of spells and creatures so that you're always getting through and you're solving specific problems. But Thalia just says don't even play those. And it is so frustrating in best of 1 to be on the draw against a Thalia. It honestly makes you not want to play Magic anymore. And it's been going on for years since the release of Crimson Vow. And can't we be done? Can't that be over? You could say Thalia punishes decks that play too many enchantments, but look how well it worked out. Did Thalia slow down, actually handle any of these? No, it did just kind of force people to play the cheapest possible removal that happened to be in white with lay down arms and happened to be in red-black, especially Bloodtithe Harvester, keeping Thalia in check. And Thalia continuing to be legal will continue to force that. Like, you have to play just creature decks only if you're not playing those spells, because Thalia will come out and tax the holy hell out of you. So I am, with those cards gone, it's true that there aren't as many non-creature spells people want to play, and they might play more creatures, which might make Thalia worse. I hope that's true so that Thalia can kind of take a break in the meta, but I don't see anything that will stop people from spamming 4 Thalias in every white deck and every white splash this deck, every human, every soldier deck for the next year plus. And I hate it. Like, I just hate that. Nothing makes me kind of roll my eyes further back in my head than turn 1 Skrelv, turn 2 Thalia. And I think they could have done something about that. And I know they don't ban for best of 1, but I'm going to say right now they should. They really should. They don't have to ban a lot. They ban these 8 cards for best of 3. They can ban 1 card for best of 1. They really should, because it is the most played format in the world. I mean, more games of standard best of 1 are played than any other format on Arena. And Arena, of course, being able to play that fast, it has to be the most played format in the world for Magic. It has to be. You can say Commander, but think about how long a Commander game takes compared to the length of an Arena game, and those babies are running 24/7. I'm confident, I don't have the data, but I am confident that Magic Arena Best of 1 Standard is the most played format in the world, and maybe they should think about it when they're banning stuff that affects the format for over a year. Another freaking year of Thalia. So that's my only frustration. That's my soapbox. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. What do you guys think of everything that got banned? Did they get it right, if this is real? Oh yeah, help me with that too. Is this real? And if it's not real, here's the biggest thing. If it's not real and the real announcement comes out and it's not this, is that going to make this whole experience that much weirder? I think so. So of course we're going to cover it here. Thank you for watching this video. As always, I'll see you in the next one. You're cool.